Kate Neligan. Welcome to the Woo Report.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You are an animal communicator and a healer. You are also a former Hollywood girly like me. And you were at Lionsgate back in the day, which honestly, we do need to offline about that because my husband, Matt, cut so many trailers for Lionsgate. And I just really wonder how intertwined we all are. I'm sure it's more than we even know. But back in that day, you were in the spiritual closet then. Yeah. And now you are facilitating equine-partnered spiritual growth, which is wild. I want to start with the communicating with animals piece. People don't bat an eye when you say they are communicating with their dog. But once we get into horses, and maybe it just feels more intimidating to me, but what is your relationship with horses and how did you begin to communicate with them in ways beyond let's go for a ride?
Yeah, great. Communication with non-humans in many ways can be very similar. For instance, some mediumship can be similar. Communicating with nature. For me, it started with horses because I have such a great love for them, because they were a huge part of my life. And I've rode since I was a kid. And then there was little sprinklings of feeling like I could hear them because I'm clairaudient. But then when it really turned on, I had just done an Earth Day sound bath or meditation, and I had sent so much love and light to all of the horses. I was so in my heart space. And I walked back into the barn and I could hear them talking. And I was like, what just happened? As though, I was on a channel, a radio station, or music was playing that it hadn't been playing before. And so then I went, this is really amazing. What is this? And I dove into it more and more. And I got trained by different animal communicators, took a bunch of classes. And I think I've always had this ability, since I was a kid, but I was shutting so many of my gifts off, including some clairvoyance and seeing ghosts. And so I just didn't know what was actually happening until I realized, you can get trained in this. You can learn this. It is something that is a form of just communication, but I call it getting on their channel so that I can be understanding what they're saying, or they can get on our channel and they can actually communicate to us that way too. So sometimes I'll just even say to people, ask to be on their channel and see what happens, right? Or ask them to come on your channel and see what happens. And so it's really just, I think in some ways, changing the awareness that you can do this, but then also the willingness. And for me, it really comes through the heart space. There's so much in my love for them that allows it to be easier and for it to happen.
I want to back up because you said you walked in and you could hear their conversations. And what were they saying?
Well, one horse, literally, I brought my horse back and this other horse turned to me and she's like, I wish you were my mom. And I'm like, what? How did I just hear it? And she did not have a great life. And there were horses there that weren't happy. And I think I was like, oh my goodness, did she really just say that? And I don't hear horses talking to each other as much, but I hear them talking to me, and I'll know when they now it's almost so normal to me that I hear a thought and then I'm like, that wasn't my thought, that was them. Or I'll say something and then I'll get an answer. So I'm literally now in two-sided conversation with my own horses because I live with them and it's a different relationship now. But when it started, it was these sprinklings of, I think I'm getting different messages. For instance, one day I was sitting with one horse and I just heard her say, where are the kids? And I said, what kids? And then I realized that she loves doing the summer camp program and she wanted to know when they were coming back and how long that would be. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And she lights up with kids where she didn't really want to do trail rides with adults. And that's what she was doing. And she was waiting for the kids. And I was like, that's amazing. So.
Wow. Okay. You're in Paso Robles, right? Mm-hmm. Is that right? California, which is wine country. I feel like I used to go there to wine taste when I lived in LA. But that's amazing. And then you also you do retreats there, and then you also do one-on-one sessions for equine therapy.
Yeah, so there's this broad category that everyone knows called equine therapy, and it is, in the industry, it's equine assisted psychotherapy, and that really is if you have a training in therapy. And then there's a whole wide range of what's called equine assisted learning, EAL, and that is more of the education space, the wellness, and the coaching space. And so my master's is in spiritual psychology, so I bring that master's to the work with the horses and the coaching. And people do come here for privates or immersives, retreats, team buildings, and training. So I certify people to do equine coaching work as well. So that's what's happening here in Central Coast of California.
So tell us what equine therapy is. Like, I've seen these videos of, on your Instagram of, a massage table laid out and someone's laying on it face up and a horse is kind of snout is kind of nuzzling in and going around the body. What is happening here? Tell us.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that is what's become viral, and that work has been done by people, myself included, for over a decade, where people lay on massage tables and are receiving energy healing. However, it's not what's traditionally actually happening in the equine assisted psychotherapy space, which is much more of, sometimes it's talking to a therapist on the outside of a round pen or an arena. Sometimes it's talking to a therapist inside of an arena and working on mental health issues of all different ranges. And people traditionally know about therapeutic riding, for disability. They know often about veterans work and working on mental health and post-traumatic stress. And then there's lots of different other things that can support on the mental health side. Then you have this wellness side, which for me has been more fun in terms of working with different types of partnerships. So we've done sound baths and we've done labyrinth walks and hiking and yoga. And it's been really neat to kind of pair modalities and be in the wellness space and the healing space. So what you're seeing with the massage table is, very interesting, because that is now what people think equine therapy is, right? Which it isn't, traditionally hasn't been that. And many, many, many practitioners are not doing the table work. So I started doing the table work because my horse told me to get her a table. One day I heard her say, get me a massage table. And I said, what are you talking about? And this was like a decade ago. And then within a day or two, there was another kind of viral video at the time from Canada of a woman doing these table work sessions, is what we call them, in Canada. And so I got a table, I put it down, and my mare didn't come over. And I'm like, I made this whole thing up. I'm crazy. Like, this isn't happening. And then next thing I know, I hear commands: take my halter off, take their jewelry off, take the shoes off. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, so I did everything for her, like, I'm your assistant. And then boom, she's in. And what she was doing and what my horses do now is what I would call energy healing. It's energy work. So people call it Reiki. I don't think of it as Reiki. Reiki is its own specific initiation. It is what the horses do, which is their frequency and their energy, their vibration. They are transmuting energy, they are transmitting energy, and they are, in my mind, often also doing psychic surgery. Like, there's a lot of things that they're doing that we don't have real proof of. But what I know is that people walk away with healings that you can't explain. Like, I had a woman never have to use her inhaler ever again. So, and she had asthma. I've had lots of really wild stories of, like, the horses going to parts of the body that had been hurt or damaged, injury that I didn't know about. And that, people tell me, they're like, oh, of course the horse is there. This is what happened. So there's lots of different things that they're doing. They can work on mental and emotional states that need help too. So people will just start crying, and a lot can happen on the table, and it's beautiful. And, I think it needs to be done with a lot of consciousness about how the horses work and what happens, and how people can feel really vulnerable when they lay down and a huge animal's on top of them like that. So I'm actually going to start a program on training people on how to do those table sessions with a lot of care and consciousness, and compassion for the horses and the humans, because I don't want it to see it just become a trend. Because when it gets trendy, it's like the latest healing fad, and that's not really what it's about. so.
So, I mean, you said it, people can be a little scared or intimidated. I feel like I'm intimidated by horses. I mean, I just feel like I have a little bit of a fear of them. And I don't know that I don't have any really, I've never really interacted with horses in this lifetime. Like, I assume it could be like maybe a past lifetime fear. Maybe I was trampled by a horse. I'm making things up now, but like also maybe, I don't know. So there, I feel like I had heard you did another podcast, and I heard you very briefly explain the kind of evolution of horses and humans and that relationship. And it was so fascinating to me because I've never thought about it. Do you mind explaining that here?
Yeah. And it's normal to have a fear, and we can definitely talk about it. In fact, I think we're supposed to have some cautious reverence for horses and their size and their power and what they can do, because they can kill us, of course, in terms of just how big they are, and they can hurt us. However, they don't want to. That's not their intention. They are, in my opinion, some of the most angelic beings on this planet. So if we approach them from that space, it actually adds to the safety, versus if we come at them with fear. They're sort of like, wait a minute, why are you all fearful of us? You actually eat horses. You actually harm horses. There are tons of horses in holding in the wild, because we humans have done way worse to horses than horses have actually done to humans. It's the same if you look at the sharks. It's the same if you look at, like, I've been fascinated because I was terrified of sharks, and now I've just trained myself to understand who they are, what the statistics are, what that's about. And I think for a lot of people, the fear is often about their own sense of power, like really being almost intimidated to start, or fearful of their own sense of power, of how big their power is, how unlimited we are, what our potential is, how much we actually can do as souls in a body. And there's like a, wow, can I even be with my own sense of power and empowerment? And that brings up a lot for people. So I love working on that. But also, I do think, to your point, past lives, for sure. I mean, think about it. So if you think about the history, like, we've been alongside of them through war. So if was a war, or as natives riding, and what we've been through with native culture in past lives, right? We have seen a lot of trauma. We've probably died on horseback. I know I have. The first time I did yoga on horseback, I came off laying on the side, just over the side of a horse, and I got so nauseous. And I'm like, whoa, what is this from? Like, and I realized it was the memory came back, the somatic came back of, you died this way. You were dying on the back of a horse sideways, being carried along. And you see that in the movies. Like, we know, and it had to get out of my body. So I was able to just, literally cry and feel it out and like let that leave. But for the other interesting somatic, I used to horseback ride, and then I would try to close my eyes when I was just standing on a horse, sitting on the back of a horse standing, and I would get sick then too. I would feel dizzy. And so that was like where my fear was living. And it was like this lack of trust, or this, can I not see and be on the back of a horse? And so then I really trained myself to deal with that too, and to get that out of my body. Because I do think our body holds a lot of memory about horses, for sure. And then a lot of us have heard stories, or we've seen stories. Like Christopher Reeves, like, I know that is impacted the collective, right? Like, what happened to Christopher Reeves. And like, I do believe that, but we risk every time we go inside a car, like, there's so much that is risk here on earth to the body. So I liked what my master's program says, we're relatively safe here. And I try to help people understand, like, you're relatively safe, but the horses ask us to step in with more trust, and then they meet us within that space. And there's things to do to keep yourself safe with them. So I always do safety demos with people, or briefs and whatnot. But ultimately, I think it does come down to, like, once we are with our own sense of power and how big we actually can be, we can match their energy. We can see ourselves as equals, and that can be really, really beautiful. I find men often are very intimidated by them, because I think they're the only beings that are kind of really bigger than men that they actually have to deal with in the wild animals, of course, and big wild animals, but how often are you going to see big cats or giraffes? And, but like they get real humbled because, oh, you're no longer the biggest creature around right now. And that brings up stuff for people. It just does.
It's interesting. And I heard you talk about like horses have, been our mode of transportation, and then they're with us for sport. I mean, they're still horse races. Like, for communicating with animals, are they okay with all of this? Like, are they, like, I see that obviously the ones that are currently in New York City, like, are they okay?
Okay, so such a beautiful question. And yeah, to get to that piece about their history. So in my personal belief system, and what I've also heard from others, is that they're co-evolving with us, right? So they're here for their own soul's journey, as all sentient beings are. And they're here to learn. Well, what's a great way to learn? To be in partnership with humans, because humans are like these tragically flawed ego creatures. So they're going to learn from us, and they're also going to help us. And so I do believe that a lot of animals are contracted to help us in different ways, right? And horses have watched us for their own safety for so long because they're prey animals. And so our mood that day, or whether we're going to feed them, or the domestic ones, their whole lives are dependent on how humans are showing up in their actions and how humans are showing up in their emotions. So they've learned to read us, and they have carried us. They've carried us through war. They were transportation for a while. Then they became these sport vehicles, like as though they're like fun. And I'll get to your do they like this question. But then now I look at it as like they're really carrying our souls forward. They're actually helping us with our burdens and our emotions. And yes, I think like they can get burdened by anything they're doing, which I'll mention in a minute. But without a doubt, I think they're now into this like, hey, here's another way that we can move you forward, not just physically anymore, but actually mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So it is spiritual growth. They're moving us forward. I think of them as ascension partners now.
They're helping us evolve. Yes.
And they know how to be, like, if we listen to a horse, we'd be a better human. They know how to be in community and relationship. They know how to trust. They know how to be strong and soft at the same time. So they actually are great role models for humans. Like, we can be better humans if we learn from them, in my opinion. Do they like it? I think every horse is an individual the way every human is. So, well, I don't necessarily want to play soccer. One of my best friends does. And I think it's the same with a horse. I've asked horses before, because I was at a barn where there was a lot of vaulting, which is gymnastics on the back of a horse. And people run up and they jump on horses and they were, use them almost like a mat or a trampoline or whatever it might be. And I said, do you like that? And this one horse is like, no, I want to do what you're doing. Like, I want to be working with emotions. And he would whinny every time we left the stall, and he would get mad and jealous of my mare. Like, the whole thing was just wild. And then the other horse that does it, and I said, what do you think? And he said, I'm an athlete. This is what I do. And he immediately showed me a picture of a man holding up a cheerleader. And that the sport of like cheerleading, where men are actually like these beautiful pillars of strength holding up women to fly and jump and whatever. And he's like, that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, cool, dude. Like, I'm all for just having a voice and a choice, right? It's like what you like, I don't have to like, but do you have a voice and a choice in getting to do that work?
Oh, it's so interesting. Okay. So you were saying, so now it's kind of evolved. So you're doing sometimes massage table therapy. So you were saying before, maybe also sometimes you're present in the ring. Is that what you called it? The ring? Okay. And you're talking to people? Like, what's happening during this?
Yeah, this is what people always are curious about and don't really understand. And so there are times when I am working with exercises and I'm doing something really intentional that's based off of what a client wants to work on. So if they want to use their voice, there may be an activity I have them do to practice using their voice with the horse, to asking the horse to move, to asking, like I had someone yesterday singing to horses, which was really beautiful. And so it may look like, for me, I'm in the moment. I stay in the moment. I stay present to what the horse is showing, what the horse is saying, because I have my communication piece, what the client needs. And that's kind of like this beautiful trifecta. And then I trust my intuition and I work with my own healing gifts. So I'm trained in different healing modalities. So I pull those in as well, like emotion code or access consciousness, bringing that in when I see, okay, this is a self-worth issue. Let's work on clearing why we have self, and going into some of these energy clearings. And then the horses are doing that too. So they'll nuzzle people, they'll move, even if you're standing up or sitting in a chair, they're doing very similar work to what I see them do on the massage tables, which is moving energy out of the body you don't need, or putting energy into the body, like unconditional love and support that you do need. They have a way of seeing people and helping people feel really seen. They have a way of holding people and helping people feel held. And they are non-verbal. So there's something about just being in their presence and feeling how much that they are loving and choosing to do these intentional things, like putting their head on someone's heart when someone is like really needing self-compassion, and then someone starts crying, and then we're into these places and spaces that therapy might take weeks to get to build rapport and to get to that space inside of a room, but you're in nature and you're with these animals, and so you're immediately getting these higher frequencies. Plus, it's safer for a lot of people to talk to an animal or to feel understood. I get a lot of animal lovers, and that's me. I mean, my life was that I felt safest with horses, and I felt most seen and most myself, and I could cry on their shoulders. I still do. So.
Wow, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So why are people, you get animal lovers, but why are they coming to you? You mentioned maybe they're having fears with their voice. Why else are they coming to do this?
I mean, the range is incredible. So I get a lot of more emotional intelligence situations. So what I mean by that is someone is hard on themselves, overthinking, anxious,
Relatable.
Yeah, exactly. I get a lot of high achievers because that's me. Like I always say we help the people we were 5 years ago. So for me, it's like, the type A, and I think there's just something about how horses get us to slow down and become present and feel grounded, that alone and being outside is enough. Like, I'm like, great, session's done, 10 minutes, you got grounded, you feel nature. And so like we start there, and then from that it becomes, what is going on in your life that you need to work on? And often it's something having to do with the relationship with self or others, and there's emotional stuff. So there is often little or big traumas that we'll look at and move through with emotion code and with the horses doing their energy work. But a lot of the way it works is how you do one thing is how you might do anything. So if you approach a horse and you feel rejected by the horse, is that what happens in relationships, at work, with dating, that you feel rejection a lot? Is that a self-worth issue? If so, can we move that out? How do we move that out of the system, right? So we can talk about stuff all we want, but until we actually move what got stuck, whether it's a stuck emotion or energetic, it doesn't actually change. So that's why I love like the combo of myself plus the animals, because it's a game changer on like this energetic level versus it just being a mental processing level of human to human. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Do you have to be there physically, or can the horses jump on Riverside or Zoom?
Such a good question. So I ultimately have always done this work in person. Love that, because I love how the horses touch and feel on the somatics. Brushing a horse, petting a horse, really good somatic work. However, in 2020, I was like, I can't stop doing this. This is my calling. So what am I going to do? And I experimented with bringing the horses onto Zoom, and they will come right up onto the camera and stick their nose in. They'll breathe. They'll stand next to me and be a mirror for people of connection, presence. I can act out stuff with and show someone like, okay, I would say, what would you do with a horse right now? And then I'll go do it for them. And they'll be like, what do you think? Did that work? So I'm almost like surrogating. And there's lots of different ways that you can actually bring them on Zoom. It is better to be in person, in my personal opinion. I mean, you get all of the senses, right? Yeah. And you're getting a transmission of the horse energy through Zoom. That's why so many people can watch like some of these viral videos and be like, wow, I feel the love, or I feel the healing. Because there is that whole, when one of us heals, we all move forward, right? We're all connected, and the mirror neurons that happen too when you watch healing. So without a doubt, you can get great experiences virtually, but I do love it in person. And when I do animal communication, I don't need to be with the animal. Sometimes it's easier to not be with the animal because I'm pulling off of a photo and I'm channeling. So I'm actually doing it differently, like the way a mediumship session might be done, right? So,
oh my gosh, okay, so many questions from this. Did you say did you say mirror neurons?
Yeah.
Please dissect that.
Well, so that the first time I had heard that was in the Tom Shadyac movie I Am, about how we can feel pain when someone else is feeling pain. And those who are empaths and highly sensitive, which are usually my people and the people who are drawn to horses, because they've gone through, they're not feeling safe as a kid, or whatever their programming is, so that their coping mechanism in some ways is like empathy or being highly sensitive. But also there's just certain types that are like that, right? And so the horses, I think, are just like that. They're empathetic and they're highly sensitive. They're intuitive. And you're like, how do you know all of this? And they know stuff. And we often say, you couldn't make this up. Like, you just can't make up what happens here. So ultimately, yes, as we have the mirror neurons, but what we find, people used to call horses mirrors. And I actually was going to call a book Horses as Mirrors until I had a dream and my mare shattered the mirror in the dream, like on the car. And she's like, we're much more than mirrors. And so I don't like calling them mirrors anymore. A mirror is an inanimate object, right? It just gives you a blank reflection. What the horses are doing is holographic work in my mind, and constellations. So for instance, yesterday, someone was like, this is like almost theater of horses, where they're acting certain things out, and it can be like family constellation work, which I love, where all of a sudden one horse is representing a victim, another's representing a perpetrator. And you're like, whoa, that is this in my life. And people will say, that looks like my parents, or that looks like me and my partner, or whatever it might be. And then we're like, okay, well, how are we working with the animals in that way? So I personally think they are showing us and illuminating, like they're actually really more like lighthouses and bright lights that show us where everything is. And then we get to choose, does that work for us? Is this actually helping us? Because sometimes we're seeing our strengths when we're around horses, like, because horses are so strong. So we're actually seeing our resiliency and we can grow it, or we're seeing our compassion and we grow it. And then other times we're like, wow, that overthinking, that not allowing silence, that not slowing down, that's actually harming me and really something I need to change. And we see that. And we see it because the work is kinesthetic too. So if you run up to a horse, very rare that people do that, but if you're moving really fast or you're not breathing deeply, we're shown all of it because of the kinesthetic nature of this. And it often goes into almost like a gestalt energy too, right? So then you're like, whoa, why is the horse doing this? Why am I doing that? And so there's a lot in the reflective nature, but I don't think horses are just the typical simple mirrors. They're kind of holographic mirrors, so to speak.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love that. You were saying then that you can look at a picture of an animal and channel. So talk to me about like why you would do that. Is it all animals? Do you just feel connected to all animals? Or you're just like, I'm going to go on this, like, for example, pig's frequency and see how this pig's doing right now. Tell me more.
Yeah, I love it. So ultimately, people ask me to talk to their animals because usually there's something going on, right? There's either a medical issue, and I have a decent amount of medical intuition when it comes to animals. I feel it in my body. I know where there's an issue, and then people can get that checked out. Because I like, obviously, them working with vets as well. But then there can be a behavioral thing, or people wanting to know what their animal soul purpose is, how they can grow their bond and connection is very common, especially with horses, because people put a lot of time and money into their horses and they want to have a stronger relationship. And so I'm getting hired when people are having a challenge or really needing information or wanting healing for their animal. And so that's when I look at a photo and I'm channeling what's going on with that animal. I love doing wildlife for myself and like my membership group. We're doing a different power animal every month. So we're working with, sometimes like we worked with elk or we worked with hummingbird, and we were working with what are they bringing in as their medicine? Like what, it's not just like, oh, there's a hummingbird. It's like, what is the hummingbird actually saying to you today? What do they want you to know? What is their energy representation of? What is their medicine? And can we actually acknowledge them for it and see it as actually something for us that we can learn from and receive from? Otherwise, it's just everything is what? Just like a landscape or background noise. It's like we are meant to be in an engaged, interactive relationship with all of nature and the animal kingdom, because we can all help each other. And I do believe what we love, we protect. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, I would love for speciesism to end. That would be one of my life goals. Probably won't happen in my lifetime, but it's part of why I'm here, is to end that. Because there's a lot of power over dynamics and we don't need to have that. And the animals in nature aren't in that space. They're in a different type of harmony that we can really learn from. And that's where our solutions are. And we need them. Humans have created a lot of discord and we can actually learn the solutions from going to nature. But yeah, I will talk to, like, I have channeled the wild cats and elephants for a really cool nonprofit that a lot of people know about. And I like being able to bring through wisdom, like higher esoteric wisdom as well. For instance, if someone was to channel, different guides, which we see often, right? Mm-hmm. So my whole thing is, why wouldn't we consider the animals as guides as well? They are.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think about, my day-to-day and maybe the average day-to-day and what animals we are experiencing all the time. Like, I am experiencing squirrels on a regular basis, squirrels and chipmunks and birds mostly, right? Are you talking to squirrels too? Like, what are the squirrels saying?
So first of all, one of my mentors that I love is Dr. Stephen Farmer. And I call him like the godfather of the spirit animals. He's created a pocket guidebook that you can look up and be like, what does squirrel actually represent? But I think what do squirrels represent? Maybe resourcefulness, because they're collecting nuts. They understand the seasonal changes. They are very much about, gathering energy, and they can be really flighty. They can be all over the place, right? Like that whole ADHD brain, it's that squirrel energy, right? And so they can get distracted.
1000%. Yes.
So I also look at them as, and I think this is from Dr. Stephen, he talks about it being about balancing life and work. Balancing work and play. So being able to be into both spaces, so not get too heavy into just one or the other. And so I like that. So when I see a squirrel and it literally will come right up to me and talk to me, I'm like, yeah, I've got to do something about more balance in my life, or more look at my resources. And so I'll immediately think that. And then other times I might go into a squirrel and be like, do you have a message? And it's funny, one of the animal communicators that used to stay and do some pet sitting for me in Colorado, she would start this conversation with this squirrel that came up to the window every single day. And it actually started her on a path of talking to wildlife more. But he was saying that he would go to the different windows all over this apartment complex and check in to make sure the animals inside were okay. And so he was almost bringing the outside to the indoors for these animals. And he would go and he was actually working on helping heal all the spaces around the apartment complex. And I saw him and I just had so much reverence for him. And I'm like, thank you so much. And I'm like, how do I prove this? I don't know, but I watch him go to different places and look in windows. So what else is he doing? I mean, so it's just interesting that she picked that up, and then it made me have more reverence for him. And that's the thing, like, there's so much more invisible support, but that nature is visible that we're even aware of. And I think it's about feeling into that reverence and sacredness for how much we actually are supported.
It's so good, because as a spiritual being, we are learning because we are so inundated all the time and the hustle and the work and whatever. And it's like, no, we're just going to slow down and look at the squirrels and maybe get a message from them. It's just like, it's all, you don't have to do anything. You can just slow down and look at the squirrels and like, commune with nature. So do you think anyone can do this though? Is this something that like I can look out the window now and I can just can I try and tune into squirrel, bird, anything?
I would imagine you have so many gifts and there are more and more coming online. And especially as you do this podcast and you talk to people, you're like, oh, wait, I've had that or that happened. And I think sometimes for some people that aren't maybe as connected to animals, you can start with trees or you can start with plants.
Trees are really my thing right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I was like, tree. I would start with tree for you. Yeah.
Yes, I have a full-blown relationship with my oak tree in the back. So Mama Oak and I are besties, but I am trying, like, basically I've become way more sensitive to all trees now that I literally talk to her all day, every day. And, but I mean, of course, like I never thought about the squirrels, but it's so funny that you mentioned the ADHD because right out my window, there's squirrels all the time on this tree. And you know, how often are we really paying attention to a squirrel? Like, not often. I have more so now because I'm just stopping and communing with nature and, you know, I'm just pausing so much more now in my life. But this particular squirrel was making crazy noises. Like, it was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to redo the noise. But the squirrel sounded like a robot. It was acting like a robot. And it was like robotic in its movements and it was making this crazy noise. And the first thing I thought was like, oh my gosh, this squirrel has such ADHD. And I like love that you brought it up because I'm just like, the squirrel like does not know what to do next. It's like, it's just distracted.
Well, and how are we total robots at times in our past careers, right?
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, complete. Absolutely. Just robots doing all of the work. Okay. Tell me about your time at Lionsgate.
Well, I think it's so interesting that you and I have this very similar being in Hollywood, working for some big names and also just like big brands and how awesome that was on so many levels.
Totally. It's
and
so awesome.
Also how crazy it was too. And
totally.
People love hearing those stories and they often ask me about it. And I think it shaped me so much. Like I'm super grateful for like my work ethic and where that came from. And like, I think I'm a better entrepreneur because I have had a corporate background and I was doing marketing. I think there is something about that made me realize there's a lot I can do. I mean, I moved from the East Coast without really knowing anyone. And even just doing that and then setting my sights on a movie studio, which at first I didn't have. I had American Film Institute and knowing like a studio was going to come at some point. I had to just keep going. And one of the main studio leaders was like, just keep your eye on the prize. Like you're going to get there. And then I did. And then I moved up the ranks pretty quickly. And so it was pretty amazing. It's a different world there now, right? And it also is something that I think I just thought I was like a man because I was in a man's world and I had to be like them. And then I realized I have all this like priestess energy and intuitive gifts and spirituality that like I just couldn't hide anymore. I was going to Agape after work, but then I was like going back to work and selling horror movies the next day, and I'm so out of alignment, right?
Wow. Yes. Horror movies. Right. All the Saw movies.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I was like, what did Matt work on? He worked on so many horror movies. It was more than horror movies though, right? But it was Blumhouse. Right?
We had all the Saws, the Hostels, the American Haunting. We had so many horror movies because we had FearNet as one of our offerings or channels with Sony and Comcast, and it was just so much, you know. But even we had all the thrillers. We had Tyler Perry, and we had
Tyler Perry, right, an
amazing library too. But we had so many horror movies and I couldn't watch that stuff. Luckily I didn't have to, but I did watch the trailers. I always had to watch the trailers.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because I used to be really into horror movies and now I'm like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I can't really watch them anymore. I just don't want to, but I've always like loved a movie trailer because the movie trailer makes you feel a certain way, makes you jump. It like, and that's why I just like love creating content because it makes you feel something, whether it's fear or love or compassion or whatever. And that's why, I'm in the content business now, but
I love it.
It's so funny that you ended up moving into this work. And I also saw that you posted about your horses, your 3 horses, your team, and you said they each kind of have different archetypes.
Yeah.
Will you explain the archetypes real fast? Because I feel like that was so interesting.
I think there's so many in the horse world, and they can map or be similar to what we see in the human world. But if you think about like our traditional mythic or mythology, you've got Pegasus and you've got unicorn and you've got like dragon energy or this phoenix energy, and you have this energy of the seahorse and different types. And so for me, I look at kind of my horse's horsenality, so not personality, but horsenality. And are they more extroverted or introverted? Are they, do they need to be more physical, or are they more, introverted, I guess? And that's not the right word. Are they more internal? And then I look at sort of what their teachings are. And my goats, very similarly, they each have a very different teaching, like a different emotional intelligence teaching. It's actually why I created a card deck, because I wanted to bring to light all the different teachings. But their archetypes are in that space of, like, a unicorn I think of as like having extra healing, magical healing abilities. And a Pegasus is often about some form of flight or movement. And so I just really like the archetypes. But when I teach it inside of the certification program, I talk a lot about the different types of horses that you might partner with. So sometimes, like on your podcast, you're going to have the spiritual teacher. They're a thought leader. They want to bring through information. Then you're going to have the healer type, where everything's going to be like a frequency or a delivery through that energetics. And then you might have the witch type, or there's a lot of intensity, or there's a lot of like magic happening or spell casting, and so I think that each of the horses, there's a lot of like what I find the goddess archetypes in them as well, because even the male horses, there's a lot of feminine energy in horses. People see that, they see their freedom, they see their majesty and majesticness, and they always say there's just something about horses. So it's a lot of how they show up in sessions, and some of them are really good about teaching, and I think some are really good at healing, and some are really good at more like being a therapist or a coach. Like, they want to pose questions. And so I ask my horses what they want. I let them, they will move in and out of different roles, but they have a tendency, like one of my horses only picks certain people that she wants to work with. You have to be ready for her. You have to be willing to change, and you have to be right before a breakthrough, or right before some sort of large promotion or something that's going to happen in your world. And she's really there to work on confidence and self-worth with people, but leadership at its core, because that's the other thing. You can't lead a prey animal without learning about your own leadership, because they're not going to listen to you otherwise. They're huge. You can't make a horse do anything. So to get a horse to work with you, to partner with them, you have to embody certain qualities so that they actually listen and cooperate. So a lot of the stuff in the horsemanship world, where you see trainers and they're working with behavioral issues, which isn't really always my space, I'll do it sometimes, it's often the human. The human isn't breathing, slowing down, honoring the horse, listening. And it's really a human issue. And a lot of it comes down to this nervous system regulation as well. Like, how are we doing that work? So that was a long answer to your archetype.
Oh my gosh, I love it though. And you have your card deck out now, and tell me about it. I saw it. It's so beautiful. So tell me about the deck.
I'm curious what card will come forward for your listeners. Like, what we want to see.
We love a card pull.
Yeah. Oh, that one is really, this is really sweet. So this one's a relationship. And this card has been coming up a lot recently. So you have 2 horses that are mutually grooming each other, which means that it's like there's a flow of giving and receiving. And it's obviously, you and I were meant to have a connection.
I was just thinking it's us. So I was like, it's totally us. 1000%.
Yeah. And also just like you and your husband, that he was in entertainment too. Like, I want to know that story now, like how you guys met. And so I think, the cards are really beautiful because you can have your horse pull a card and hold it out to them, or you can pull one. People love them in sessions because they have their clients and they'll often ask, like, what is it that you most need to focus on? So for me, apparently I need to focus on relationship this week, which is true based on what happened to me yesterday. I am full on working on relationship this week.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's like ideal. And for your listeners, it's like, what is it as they're listening and watching that they think of when they think of relationship? But what I did is I channeled what the horses have to say about each quality and what they're teaching. So this is what the card deck was born from, is what are they each teaching? What wisdom? So there's a short paragraph from the horses, a little bit that I wrote of just being a coach for 15 years. And then there's an exercise you can do to grow this quality, this emotional intelligence quality. So relationship, what the horses said is, this is everything to us. We are always in this space, whether you notice it or not. This is why we prefer herds, which is like their community. Like a dog would be in a pack, they're in herds, and they want to connect with you as well. We want things to feel good inside of our relationships. We know who is open to really being with us. It's the same for humans too. Be in one that feels best, which is how the horses live their life. They do what feels good. They don't shit themselves. They don't have to. They're led by these big guts and these big hearts into what feels good. And that is what humans need to do more of too. So the stuff that's ending, based on my recent relationship stuff, is so needing to end as I continue to up level, and we get different relationships as we up level, as we do more inner work, as we raise our vibration, we attract different people, as you know, right? And so
yes. Wow. Oh my gosh. This is so interesting, Kate. Tell everyone where they can find you. And this deck is available now. I saw you just restocked it.
Yeah, I did. And so it's kateneligan.com is my website, and the Awakening with Equines card deck is there. And it's really to help people with that awakening process and get connected to horses.
And it's so fun. And it also is healing. It also helps everybody. It also feels good. I mean, I was just thinking about all the different modalities I've tried. I've obviously never tried equine therapy, but I want to. The way that you talk about horses makes me want to get into the vicinity of a horse immediately. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you for listening to The Woo Report. I hope you enjoyed that episode. For way more woo-woo, please follow and subscribe to The Woo Report podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you love to listen. Never miss an episode of The Woo Report by joining the community at thewooreportpodcast.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, rating, and loving on this little slice of magic. I am so, so grateful you are here. Bye.